Good evening. You're listening to the Extreme Movie Show. I'm your host, Rob, broadcasting to you from the Pinus Palace, just west of Orlando, Florida. I am in the Extreme Studios. I've got with me today in the Extreme Palace here the young 20-something Professor Pix, and we are continuing our Season 1 coverage of Hannibal, the TV show starring Mads Mikkelsen. Episodes 7 and 8 is what we're taking a look at. And I know this is a first watch for you, Pixel, but we're definitely turning the corner here on the number of episodes. I think it's a 13-episode run here. What I want to just kind of set the scene here is that we've seen a lot of characters. We've seen some kind of reduced to background, some brought in. And what I recall is that for as far as television shows goes, in all honesty, this was one of my last. I'm going to watch it weekly, as I would record it like on my TV or whatever the hell it is, my cable box, because I was just so damn interested in it. And nobody was watching. The show is very close to getting canceled. I'm glad it didn't because I've really enjoyed it. But it's one of those things where you're like, okay, this seems to be what the show's going to be. But boy, what a time to pull out all the stops here, as I got to sit there and say, because when it comes right down to it, you got a lot of stuff going on here. They upped the ante in several areas, and I will just start off with that. What's your initial take here as we start into episode 7?
Yeah, no. I know it's been a few weeks for us since we've been able to do this, but it was nice to go back. And I'm very glad how we've gone ahead and separated our reviews, because doing 1 and 2, 3 and 4, and then 5 and 6, these 2 episodes are perfect next to each other. And we'll get into that as we go through. So with this episode, we go ahead and start. We have Jack taking Will along because it looks like there's possibly another Chesapeake Ripper slain. They go into this hotel, and the guy has been it appears that he's been operated on. And Will does his thing, kind of looks, and he's trying to get what's happening here, because there's already an organ missing, which is what the Ripper does, because we know he's hungry. But here, Will isn't seeing this at all. He's not seeing that this man was brutally murdered. Instead, he sees the killer was trying to save him. And he goes ahead and tells Jack. Jack isn't happy about that, because Jack's like, no, I want to get the Ripper. But Will's like, trust me, you just gotta wait. The Ripper will reveal himself, but this is not his work.
I like how, obviously we get the previously on Hannibal, and they talk about certain scenes, and the one scene in there is from the last episode is where Lana Bloom's on the edge of the bed, and I told you, hey, this is flirting, especially, the way they're professionals, all that, where he's like, I don't think I've ever gotten you in a room on a bed alone or whatever. The other thing, though, that I thought was interesting is that some of these things that they're priming you for, that's what they think is really important. And that can differ, right? What I found to be really worth visually watching here, which I've seen to kind of in the past episodes focus more on the actual plot, because frankly, the plot lines and the serial killers have really meant almost nothing to me. It's the long-term bonding stuff that's the important stuff here, is that when you get Will being a bit more assertive as far as standing his ground. I liked how we get the unique camera view of the opera singer, and we get all this kind of stuff set up as we get right past this initial take here, because, we got the A and B storylines, right? So the A1 with Will, the key thing that jumped out to me was when he's talking to his students there in the dark or whatever, and he's being looked at. Well, it's reminding you of what we saw earlier in the season, but he seems a bit more confident. And the scene where he does his mental withdrawal, or whatever we want to call it, where we get the slow little chronometer thing flashing back and forth, that's to say he's in the mind of the killer, kind of visualizing it. If you notice, Jack Crawford says basically, it's okay, Will, something to the effect of, you can go ahead and take your time whenever you're ready, as opposed to pushing him like he's done before. And that's kind of subtle. The thing that really stood out to me, though, because they break that up here with this opera singer, is we get the camera angle, the vocal cords going and all that too. you see here where she's standing there singing, and you see, of course, the way they choose what characters to focus on. You see Hannibal in there watching, and he starts tearing up. So you see him actually being a bit emotional here rather than just as an animal in fight or flight or whatever. Like we've seen him kill people literally. That seems like it's not planned, right? Even though he's, for the most part, doing all the eating. But we also see, I believe it's Franklin, the guy that's trying to like see him, but it's not. Yeah, you have that Florence Nightingale kind of effect where you almost fall in love with the person that's helping you out, or that's in the instructor or whatever like that too. They call it Stockholm syndrome and the other whatever. But what I thought was funny was this whole introduction, because he's meeting the one lady and her friends or whatever in the art scene about having dinner parties again. But of course, we had already been told by Jack what the timeline's been, where they've killed in like 2 or 3s over the past like 18 months or whatever it's been. So they're expecting it soon. And the lady's here telling you basically, Hannibal, I'm so upset we haven't had those in a while. And he's like, well, I can't just do it, but it's whatever. And so it's just witty kind of banter, but it's emphasizing the point that we were told in the other storyline, and that's what I think is always very crafty about the way they write in their storylines. But I wanted to ask you here specifically, Pixel, especially as a young guy here. I know we have different thoughts, but I always feel like this is a kind of like a damaged family trying to figure their way out with each other and all that. Maybe even a slightly gay subtext between Hannibal and Will here. We'll see what happens. But when when Franklin is there, he's got an African-American general with him who's taller, decent looking, actually taller than Hannibal, got a decent looking physique. Yeah. And Tobias. But Tobias's look on his face, I go, well, he doesn't look gay to me or whatever like that. But I go, man, this guy's either a really shitty actor or something, because it's like, I felt like Franklin was like hiring an escort to basically kind of try to see if he could make Hannibal jealous of attention, if that makes sense. I don't mean it's necessarily sexually, but it's, oh, hey, I'm somebody now. I'm cultured. I'm in the arts a little bit, and I have Tobias. Did you get any vibes here at all about anything or not?
Oh, I thought Franklin was gay.
Okay. Not uncommon in the art world, and in Central Florida here, we have an extremely diverse community of all ages and ranges and whatever thing that floats your boat here. Right, wrong, or others. We're not being political here. It's just a thing. And we obviously, that would not be uncommon for that to happen. So Tobias's presence, just the way he was just kind of looked kind of unhappy there, stood out to me. That's why I said, is he supposed to do that? It caught my eye immediately.
Yeah, no, and it was funny, like seeing Hannibal seems very uncomfortable.
Yeah, he wants things on his terms, and when it's not, it's like he recedes to that survival instinct of not being emotional, right? And he's a good way. He's very good when he's in charge and he directs it. It's fantastic. But you're right, he's clearly not in charge here.
Yeah, and when you go ahead and because Franklin's going around, and there's this woman that's talking. Oh, Hannibal, you used to throw the most splendid dinner parties. And he's kind of just like brushing aside. No, I just haven't had it. The dinner has to come to me. But that does get us once we have the conversation with Franklin, because, well, I was actually going there not completely by accident, because he wants Hannibal's attention. He wants Hannibal to be his friend, which it's funny to me. I don't know.
I really don't have a problem with it. And the guy is in therapy. So he's being assertive in that he's verbalizing his needs, and at least he's consciously aware of it, because they always say awareness is the first key. If you don't have that, then you can't do anything. But with that, the old school expression is, you got to have courage. Courage is the virtue that's most important, because without it, you can't have any others, and it has to lead to action. So he's in here trying to find something. So Franklin, I don't like him, and I don't like how he put the snotty rag on the table, and we saw all this. But Franklin kind of impressed me a little bit here, because he's driven a little bit, I think, right? He's taken action, right? He's now there with a friend that we hadn't seen before. Okay, Franklin, show me what you got.
Yeah, and we will see what he has later on. We do have Will afterwards, though. I'm trying to remember. Is this where he has that weird scene with the body in the middle and Abigail Hobbs from across from him.
That's coming up here, but what we saw here is kind of like it's cut in between, no pun intended there, of him. They're talking about the organ removal and how it's like, oh, it's got to be have something surgery. But the thing that sticks out about that scene is we've seen a couple of the background guys that help out with the body stuff and all that. The one guy's basically almost arguing with him. He's being served to. So everybody's kind of like, when I say assertive, that doesn't mean you get what you want in life. It just means you're stating your case and people know what kind of boundaries to have about it. And while the guy's talking, it's not, I don't think, meant to be a comic effect here, but Will just kind of gets up and closes the door. His face doesn't slam it. And he believes it's not the Chesapeake Ripper, right? And so even here, when I've said before that Will Graham's being less of a pussy here and a little bit more assertive with Jack Crawford, Jack's like, are you sure? And he's like, no, it can't be. This is like a medical student, somebody, doing like, a backyard, operation for whatever and all that kind of stuff there too. And Jack, in his position, he has to be certain about it, whatever. So I like the fact that if you're just watching this scene and you hadn't seen their interactions before, you'd go, okay, they're being professional, but we've seen it develop into this. But he basically lets them know, hey, I'm going to kill this motherfucker. But Jack, we also know, is a little triggered here too, because he keeps, being reminded that Miriam's still kind of out there and he's being taunted or whatever, because we saw that just a little bit. But the scene that you're talking about where he's talking with Hannibal sitting down, this is where Hannibal's basically kind of like, hey, I'm not your friend. I'm a stable guy here. And it's going to lead to Hannibal seeing his own psychologist, which is a bit of an interesting here too. And you're right. I think Franklin here is doing a great job as an actor in that he's communicating with them, but there's a lot of talk about the masks that we wear, how we want people to see us. So again, a lot of times these things are reflected doubly with the A and B storyline, like I mentioned before. But here in Franklin's case, it has to do when Franklin and Hannibal are not together, and Hannibal is with his psychiatrist, which I'm sure we'll talk about in a minute. I wanted to point out here too, just as the fashion sense part of the show, Franklin's wearing like an olive and blue kind of outfit, but the olive, you just ask yourself, is it a solid or a pattern? So he's got a solid. So we go shirt, we go tie, and we go jacket. So he's got a striped shirt, a patterned tie, and a solid. So he's got 2 out of 3 patterns. Hannibal has 3 patterns. It's extremely difficult to do and pull off because of how they contrast with each other. But I was going to remark about that in his ending scene here too. But when he goes to see his psychiatrist, surprise, 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 unless you didn't watch it and weren't around at the time since you're the young 20-something, it's Gillian Anderson from the X-Files, looking very professionally mature. And there's some of the best writing and dialogue, I think, are in these 2 interactions here so far. What do you think?
Yeah, no, it's very interesting to see our resident therapist in therapy. We do.
What do you think of Hannibal actually like seeing a therapist? How did you feel about that?
It feels weird to me, just because we know what he does. We know what he does. So him going ahead and having a therapist of his own that he's sitting with and talking to it feels very strange. It feels like a strange choice. Yeah, no, because it's an interesting scene, but what I wanted to go ahead and touch upon next, though, was how he goes ahead and we get a flashback.
Uh-huh.
We get a flashback, black and white. He's getting blood taken. He has this medical examiner saying, well, you know any other infections you have? You might as well just tell me now. And Hannibal doesn't seem to like this guy. Goes ahead and asks for his business card. And we cut to the present where he goes ahead. It's the same guy driving his car, and the gas tank is leaking, and he has to pull over. And who's pulling up behind him? Hannibal. Do I know you? Boom, boom, boom. And he has these heavy footsteps. Oh, my God.
Yeah, I don't need to see Hannibal killing people. I don't mind that, but I just, the verbal sparring is the most delicious part of the episodes to me. I just, this is one of those things, like a lot of the serial killer stuff, where it's just there to me. Like, I'm like, okay, they're just putting us in because they have to give us a reason to show this because something later or whatever. It didn't make me feel one way or the other. I was like, I was kind of nonplussed about it. I did tell you before that, like, Hot Asian was interested in them as well as Alana Bloom or whatever, because she gets a bit more talking to there where they're mentioning what's going in and out. And I like the idea how they talked about with the organs being removed at the time, going, again, this shows, 2014, 13, 14, 15, whatever like that. I like how they modernized it with the language of the time that didn't sound dated to now, where they basically say, because Will knows some stuff, but he doesn't know what the level these guys do, right? The anatomy, but he's basically like, yeah, when you take this out, these things that are connected with it, they're like USB cables, allows you to do whatever. And they intersperse this with Hannibal cooking, and he's got like a little roast going there too, and he's rolling the stuff out, and he's taking his time, and that's humorous to me, because it's so disgusting hearing them kind of go, well, what kind of person knows how to take out an organ but know to leave these certain things on it with it in case you transport it? They're coming up with the theories about organ harvesting, those kinds of things, flying it to China, and all stuff that's like realistic, right? And then they show him making like the rosebuds or tulips or whatever like that, but he's having dinner, he's prepping with Alana Bloom, who's looking quite fetching in her outfit or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
And the subtle stuff that's going on here, language-wise, that you might miss, or anybody, is he's like, I'm sorry I'm being rude. Would you like a bottle of wine? And she's like, well, I prefer beer. He just happens to have one that he's brewed for 2 years for her. That's her own thing. And it's a red, of course. So I'm like, is that from blood? I don't know. It makes you think everything's from food, right? And she's got a nice palate, which of course he respects, because she can tell a little bit. And she's doing the mirepoix over on the side there, and he's doing the meats, which, whatever, they got their stations and they're talking. But he's not asking about Will. He's letting her bring it up because he's so damn good at not jumping in. As a guy, like, hey, so what's up with Will? And he's like, no. But then we find out it's alluded to that they've had a relationship before in the past, and it seems like it was sexual. You don't have a woman cooking with you that's a friend. Now, they're professionals. They've worked together before. We don't know to what extent. Again, this is a show that doesn't necessarily go by the books necessarily. They're inspired by it. But it's funny when she comes up and they're talking about it, and I'm like, and he's letting her talk about what she wants to, because he'll get the most information from it. Yep. So he's like, hey, you realize those were the ones that thought we were having an affair. Why didn't we? You're already having an affair. So was that an emotional affair? There's different types of affairs, not just sexually, some people would argue. So maybe they weren't that way, but she's like, hey, you just changed the subject like that. It's very flirtatious.
You and Will do that.
Yeah, this is really good stuff. I'm like, ooh, I feel like this is a soap opera, but it's really good. And just watching Matt's face as she's talking, we just see his face. Normally you get like a 2-shot where you see over the shoulder sometimes, but and you do get him going back and forth. But she's letting him basically see whatever. This guy is the ultimate listener when it comes to women, and they don't even know it, because it's not like he's trying to seduce her, but it's what you just call high-level communication. He's not saying anything. She says whatever, talks about how, Jack's really been bothered by this or whatever, which of course is what, he wants, because he's the bad dude, right? That's so we suspect, right? I'm not used to seeing Jack Crawford be disturbed, but I think it's a nice contrast to him being a bit of a dick. So all these guys' roles, they've stepped up a bit as far as their ability, as far as their acting and what it looks like and everything too. I think it's been pretty tremendous so far too. I'm really enjoying it.
I loved after that conversation though, because he is going ahead and preparing this big elaborate dinner. What does he go? He goes into a Rolodex and starts looking up recipes. And then he goes into another Rolodex and starts picking out business cards.
Business cards really don't exist anymore. I grew up where they were a thing, and you had them in there, and that was kind of how you did stuff. They call that a Rolodex. You'd have it there on your desk. I mean, I had the old roll top Victorian desk, which is an old piece in the family or whatever, until I got my own desk. So it just, I looked at that one. This is a guy that has classic antique stuff that's not flashy, but it's something that's always in style or whatever too. But Yeah, I agree with you. I think it was kind of cool. I did like how we did get another session quickly of Franklin talking to Hannibal, basically pleading his case about what he's into, and really saying, no, we do have some things in common. Franklin is doing what has to happen in relationships. He's putting himself out there nakedly, emotionally, and visible to the other person in a relationship, which is what you have to do. And even though Hannibal doesn't appear to want to reciprocate to him, you know, personally speaking, professionally, whatever you want to call it, both really, it's still something Hannibal's trying to do with Will. It seems like that's the beauty of what's going on here. It's like he doesn't see that he's trying to do it with him. But yeah, this is when Will has the little talk out with the young something that we haven't seen in quite some time that you're asking about. Her name already escapes me. You mentioned it.
Yeah, no, because they were talking about Abigail Hobbs.
Abigail Hobbs, yes, sir.
Yes, because it's a weird scene that they're going ahead and they're sitting across from each other. I'm glad we have this time together, just the two of us. And then there's a call from somewhere out in space, and she looks at him and says, "Dad," and he says, "Yeah," and then he's pulled back to reality. Yeah, no, it's definitely it's a weird one, and it's just making it more clear about his paternal role for her now. Even though she hasn't really been in these last few episodes, like she's kind of an after.
I'm glad she was put in there because I pretty much was starting to forget about her, basically.
Yeah. I love that the bodies are building up too. Like they keep cutting to where they're working on all of them because guess what? Hannibal's preparing a dinner. So what does that mean? That Chesapeake Ripper is all over the place. And we do get a scene with Hannibal asking about, because he brings everything that's happening, and of the victims. And there's a photo of hand from Miriam. But was like, oh, well, most of the time it's supposed to be mocking. She doesn't appear to be mocked here. No, but she's made this way to mock Jack.
Mm-hmm.
And did it work? I think so.
Yippers.
Yep. Also, Beverly.
Hot Asian.
Yeah.
Hot Asian Beverly.
She goes to Jack.
She's a baddie. I'm sorry.
Oh, baddie.
We'll see if she turns into one.
They have security cameras from one of the hotels where a private ambulance goes and was picking up somebody. And so they're able to go ahead, track down that place, use the GPS, and they can find the vehicle and who's inside, but not the Ripper. No, it's what they guessed, a medical student that's pretty much just going ahead and trying to take a kidney, sell it later, but he's stuck. But Hannibal has come along for this ride. And so they ask Hannibal to check it out, and he's like, I can stop the bleeding. And he just gets right in there, perfectly does it, and it's all good. And they arrest the guy.
Yeah, it's like a letdown, and again, it's just an excuse for the stuff that we've seen or whatever. But Beverly is in there enough, like some of the other characters, that were reminded she's competent, and I like that. Even with the bickering going on in the background between her and the other two FBI guys, they don't seem like dopes where they come and just make a wry comment here and there. But again, the more these relationships get more intense and things happen, the more assertive a lot of different people are becoming in their own way. And again, assertiveness is just basically, you never automatically get what you want. You have to always be dealing with other people in life. And so being assertive lets people know what's the best way to interface with you or how you're going to come at them, so you can use that to your whatever. And that's why I say Hannibal is just a level or two above everybody, and that he's not brute forcing his way through. He's not bullying anybody, but he's allowing people to talk and say what's important to them, and knowing how they are, he can kind of almost look through their eyes a little bit too. And I think that's what makes him uncomfortable when he's talking with Franklin about friendship, because he's being professional with him, but yeah, he doesn't really admire Franklin or like him at all. I mean, you could tell that. We'll talk more about that about the next episode, I'm sure, but I like how Franklin got more time on here. As far as the killer goes, it was a nothing burger. In all honesty, if that leads to anything else, we'll see. But overall, Jack a little bit more range, Will a little bit less of a pussy, a little bit more owning his character, I think, a bit without being, this emo kind of guy. It looks like the older brother of the guy that played the Hardy boy, the older boy Frank or whatever like that, and the remix that was in a Canadian show. The guy that was in Halloween Ends that everybody hates, the last of the 3 movies, which I think it's not a Halloween movie, but I like what they did. They went so fucking absurd with it. But he keeps reminding me of that same guy who's that actor. So anyway, so the guy in Halloween Ends is basically like, the younger brother of this guy, because they both have that emo kind of whatever that makes you want to laugh at them, but they don't look completely pathetic. So I thought it was an interesting episode. I really felt like things were percolating here, but nothing really stood out. Because again, I'm convinced the less elaborate the killing, the less I give a shit about that as the plot device, because it's meant nothing unless it's really a big deal, like the body on the stag and what we had with not Miriam last, but the girl that you already mentioned, whose name, Abigail Hobbs. The whole arc with Abigail early on, I was expecting to see her more and all that after the first episode, going to second, third, and that was drawn out. That was exceptional. So it does seem like, they've got a few serial killers to go into, but good episode. I think the next episode, however, 8, is absolutely 100 times better. Let's get going into that.
Yes. We start in a small violin shop where we see Tobias again. We met him last episode. Here he is with a student who is going ahead and asking about the cello strings. And are they really made from cat guts? Well, not all of them. But
Tennis
then
strings used to be made from gut, and gut had the best feel of all of them, and they lasted forever. I still have a wooden racket laying around or two that might have it. Gut was a thing, especially in instruments too. As an aside, and I'm just running my mouth here, I apologize for the interruption here, but you're the young 20-something, so part of this is I feel I need to educate and pay it forward and all that, because I'm a music guy, and I don't believe that you really are. But there's a type of wood that doesn't exist anymore, and that's hardwood. So all those softwoods and woods that get cut today in furniture and burning aren't like 40, 50, 60 years old that old furniture is made of. And there's a type out there that's like an African blackwood, where the tree is so old and dense, the oils that come out of it leave. And so people cut it, let it dry for years. That's called seasoning. And that's what they make high-end instruments out of. And I don't know that they make violins from that, because I think it's more of a European hardwood. But like with a guitar, you'll always hear about like a maple or rosewood fretboard and neck and all that kind of too, because it definitely affects the sound. And so one thing about the show that they do really well, even though I talk about the fashionista stuff in it, is Hannibal does appreciate quality. And I think if you understand that about him, he's looking for quality in his relationship. So I apologize for the quality interruption, sir. Please continue.
Yes. Then he uses the boy's guts to make instrument strings. But we cut from that to our next oh man, I was going to jump ahead straight to our main piece with him having a thing down his throat. But no, it's actually Will.
Will with all his dogs trying to fix something, and he hears something.
He's starting to hear things. He's starting to seem to lose it a little bit.
You think? Bit. See, he looked pretty calm to me. And this scene here where he's fixing something, his dog's laying around, they're all real dogs. This looks like obviously it was filmed in the winter, because there's, overnight snow on the ground and it's desolate. And a shot of him just slowing down, hearing a dog or something out in the field or whatever, because, he lives kind of out in the middle of nowhere. He's walking out there and looking around. Honestly, I don't know if there was any real light or if it was just all natural light. Just visually looks absolutely stunning. I mean, there's certain visual scenes here at the outside. They're tremendous to me. That just jumped out to me or whatever. I'm like, uh-oh. Well, yeah, you're right. I think Will's hearing stuff, but we don't know. But
yeah, no. And then he has Alana come over, and they're going ahead and talking, and
They're
quickly
not
just move
talking.
past
She
it.
came over to get the D, sir.
No, but she does not. Not
Yes,
yet.
she does. Sealed with a kiss, bro.
The
Well,
kiss wasn't here. The kiss was later, wasn't it?
this is where they're defining their boundaries, having a conversation. And he's like, "Oh, you come out here for I'm hearing things or whatever," and what is it? Oh, you just don't seem like you date. And he's like, "Oh, am I too broken to date?" And remember, he couldn't look at her in the eyes the first episode or two. Now he's doing it. So they're flirting. He's like, "Well, what's your excuse for not dating?" And she's like, "Well, makes you think I don't?" And so they're basically, again, it's that assertiveness I was talking about. But now you have them both doing it at the same time. So this scene will become a bit more important later on, but they're really defining their boundaries because we've yet to see two people in any of these episodes go from, just whatever to being intimate. And intimate does not necessarily mean sexual. It is, but the intimacy parts for some people come first, and then, we get to argue about what relationships are and how they form and all that too here. But these are both broken fucking people. Remember, I think it was the first or second episode when you were talking about all these characters, when they're walking outside the FBI and Jack's saying to Lana, "Hey, I know you know him." She goes, "Yeah, and I don't want to interview him for you and all that because he's not a thing to me," or whatever like that. You could argue that, professionally speaking, she's looking for the best man in her circle because she's worked with Hannibal, and she also knows who Will Graham is. So she's looking at those guys as her top two, basically, suitors or like that, wanting to pursue her. And Will's not doing shit, so here she is at Hannibal's place having dinner, even though it's not really for a date. It's because Hannibal's looking for information. But from her perspective, who knows? Because they even talk about it then. That's what the show does well from one episode to another. Even Tobias being a putz last episode, you see him here, you're like, oh, he's a patron of the arts. He's a music teacher, and he deals with exquisite stuff. That this is good development to me.
And because we know how connected he is to Franklin, Franklin comes to Hannibal next and is talking about, well, I know that you don't really want us to be friends outside of this. That's fine. But I've started looking at my own friendships, how you would look at it. And so I Googled about psychopaths and was surprised how I'm checking off this list when I'm talking about Tobias.
How did you feel about all this while you're watching this and what he's doing? Good, bad, stupid, like what? What was your gut reaction?
My gut reaction was, oh, God, you don't tell a therapist that you're going to go ahead and start psychoanalyzing people.
That's exactly what you do.
No.
Yes. The guy's a doctor. Mentally, that's exactly what it is. And you get to even more gut level kind of stuff with that. I mean, I appreciated that they put this in here, because what show will do that? And Franklin, I'll give him credit. He didn't seem like a putz in here. He seemed like somebody that was generally trying to make the best out of therapy, especially from the first episode when, again, like Tobias, I thought he was a bad actor, especially when we put the snot rag on here. But you know what? They knew in the earlier episodes when we first saw that and filmed Hannibal looking at it with the corner of his eyes moving down and up really quick back to the subject talking to him, that was going to be important several episodes later, which we're seeing now, the development of their relationship. Fantastic stuff.
Yeah, no, but no, the scene is great. And when he's talking about Tobias, when we go back to him, I'm really excited to talk about
What does he have to say about Tobias?
Which one? Franklin or Hannibal?
Oh, just the whole this whole scene where they're sitting down talking, where he's basically saying, hey, this is what I noticed about Tobias. What is Franklin telling Hannibal about Tobias that seems like bullshit? Because he Googled psychopaths. So what is he saying?
So he's saying that he's surprised about how much he's checking off, but he's wondering if he attracts people who have psychopathic tendency. And Hannibal says, or are you attracted to psychopathic tendencies? Because Hannibal is also a bit of a psychopath. A bit, God. Elsewhere. Now we get to go ahead and talk about one of the most disturbing things I know that each killing, the angel wings, was cringeworthy to look at, not because it looked bad, it looked too real, but this is horrifying. You have this trombone player head tilted back, and a cello just stuck down his throat, played through the neck.
I love it. This is fantastic. You don't need CGI to have good stuff, and this is good stuff.
Oh God, it's so bad to look at though. It definitely makes you uncomfortable. But then we get to go to Hannibal with Belinda again. And now he's talking about his patient, Franklin. Well, I think I'm going to have to refer him to somebody else. He's trying to cling far too much to me and everything. And she points out, well, wasn't he already referred to you? And she says how referrals can go, how dangerous that could be. And then you go ahead and you see Hannibal trying to get a little more information about Belinda, but Belinda's not playing that game.
I like that they don't shove in your face the whole, instrument through the throat graphic. I mean, it's there, you see it, but it's not like they're crash zooming on it and trying to get their money's worth. It's there. It's what they have to deal with. We know it's horrific. We've seen it. We saw all the stuff getting produced early on with flashes, and we don't know who it is because of the handwriting and all that, but it's definitely somebody wearing a suit. With Hannibal here talking to his psych, he's got a pattern, very difficult to pull off. He dresses in blue, which is very disarming in the social aspect. That's why most people wear that socially rather than professionally for the most part. I like the shot of Will and Hannibal talking in his office where the lights are really dim and they're going counterclockwise around there. And the whole thing is, well, whatever sound he's trying to produce, olive oil hasn't been used in cat gut for 100 years. It makes the strings whatever and changes the tone, all this, whatever it is. And so I just love these kinds of dualisms and the writings, the entendres, and I don't mean the cutesy kind of ones like sexually or like that, but obviously, we don't want to assume Hannibal's always the killer for all of them. That's, I think, everybody's default. So we're not sure, other than when he's eating, when they talk about somebody, who he's necessarily killed. But the thing with Franklin here sitting down is that, with Tobias, I thought the first time we saw him, he was almost like Tobias, and that he was a bad actor, and that, I felt like the director said, hey, in this scene, you need to sit down. You need to, you're just a guy looking for attention and all that too. You don't really feel the way that you feel. And they after you blow your nose, put this down on the glass shelf or whatever like that. Because here he sounds exactly the same. If I thought you're a psychopath, do I have to report it? What if I'm wrong? What if you're right? And he's like, I'm always wrong. And he's getting kind of pissed at Hannibal, which I like, because it's making it easy for Hannibal to sit there and say, yeah, fuck this. I'm doing the right thing by getting rid of him and giving him a referral or whatever, which is what he's looking at. But the most delicate, take your time kind of scene is the interaction we have next when Hannibal goes to see Tobias in his place, where when he walks in, it's got the old bell, again, old classic kind of stuff, and he puts his finger up there to distract it and looks around, and Tobias is in his element, where he talks about whatever, and he says, I've got a harps and all that. So they're doing the my intellectual dick is bigger than yours kind of contest and feeling each other out, because that's how you gain respect, right? Mm-hmm. And so it's pretty interesting, because if you look at their body language, Tobias is walking over to get behind the counter, which you could argue is defensive, even though it's in his place, while Hannibal walks up to him, not blinking, taking the offense. So there's these little subtleties as far as their motion, which I don't really comment on that much. But I love the fact you saw all these old school instruments, because I'm telling you, when you find a classic old instrument, a lot of it has to do with film and just antiques and electronics and all that. It's just fucking better quality and lasts a lifetime. Jewelry, the way clothes are, everything today is shit quality. So it was nice to see Tobias in his element with all this kind of stuff, because it's cultural, and Hannibal has a cultural background. This is nice. Rarely do we get to see people in a very cultured environment kind of go mono on it too. And you know what? Props to Tobias. He has the exact same sneer, I would call it, that we saw early on, where it's like, he ain't taking any shit. And when Hannibal gets really close into his personal space and they're looking at each other, it's very professional. But there's all these things that they're kind of judging underneath it that are pretty darn cool here. And the only other thing here, too, we see is Will is starting to have a bit more issues at night, while he's, tying his fishing lures or whatever, the dog's there, which is just cute seeing all of them too, his flock, as we talked about. And he thinks he hears something in there. When he calls Alana over, he had already kind of dug a hole in it. That's what makes me think you're right. And that is losing a little bit. I thought he was getting a bit more stable because, you know what? Again, like I said before, being assertive doesn't mean you get what you want, but it allows you to kind of relax and not be taken advantage of by other people, right? It's one of those things that you can do confidently for yourself. And it's what kind of threw me off here with him throwing, out of the fireplace, bashing the holes in it, thinking he heard like something stuck in there. You can shine the light up there and look and all that. It seemed kind of weird. But Alana comes over and he puts it on her and she wants it. Then she does what every woman does at that point, like, I don't know, I'm confused. Blah, blah, blah. I've heard too much or whatever like that. She says, I can't stop thinking if we're this, that, what. And she's basically saying, I'm bad for you, you're bad for me. They're both broke, right? But even broke people find each other. I mean, that's just how it is. Birds of a feather flock together is the rule of thumb, not the opposites attract bullshit people want to, progressively kind of say or whatever. But the reason why I'm pointing this out is because it's extremely significant, because then we go to another relationship that's developing, and that's Hannibal having dinner with Tobias.
Oh my
Give
gosh,
it to me.
this scene is fantastic.
It's very good.
It gets Hannibal pretty much saying, were you the one who killed the trombonist? And Tobias is like, well, I've had some plans now. That was me first time I did that, but I had plans to kill. He made like one other comment before saying, and then I was planning on killing Franklin and getting out of town. I plan to kill you too. But now he doesn't want to kill him because he followed Hannibal one night and saw what Hannibal does.
Yes.
And that bothers
That was the night that we saw in the last episode.
Yep.
That I go, it just seemed like it was there. But it makes sense. It's pertinent. It's not just a throwaway.
And Tobias is like, well, he wants to work with Hannibal, but Hannibal does not at this point. And then somebody's at the door. Hannibal goes ahead and goes to answer it. Or were you expecting any guests? Tobias had asked before. No, but he goes ahead. Tobias is gone by the time that Will comes in, and Will's like, "Well, I just kissed Alana Bloom," and he's just trying to make sense of it.
Well, he's excited. So when something big like that happens,
is it excitement?
Like a girl running to the bathroom and texting her girlfriends or whatever like that about whatever date she's on, right? Guys will usually call up a guy, go, yeah, we had sex. How was it, bro? Oh, it was good, whatever. So the thing that I thought was interesting about this was we don't see Tobias, but I still like the fact that he's a properly disciplined gentleman. So he's like, hey, it's fortunate you're here. I've got an extra dessert, whatever. So he's sitting down. But I love it when actors do stuff while they're talking rather than just talking. I like both, but like here, he's getting something out of the refrigerator and he's putting it down. And he's talking to him and listening to him. We don't know what happened with Tobias, what's going on. He's like, you waited a really long time to kiss Alana, which says, you were doing it for a reason, like it just didn't happen, like spur of the moment or whatever. But the thing is when he's doing it, like I mentioned to you before, he's very serious looking, but he's like smiling like he's getting happy or whatever. I'm going, I don't think Hannibal's faking being happy. He seems genuinely surprised. And we'd already noted the fact that they had at least some sort of working relationship before Hannibal and Alana before, and we saw her in his kitchen. So that's why I said she wants the D. She's wanting her attention. So what is she doing? She's putting herself out there. She's not being a slut, but she's just spending time in the circles of the few men that she finds that would probably be worth it for her, as potential suitors, if you will. And think about it. You got a guy making shit ton of money that's cultured in Hannibal. He's a catch for her. She's mid-30s, a professional. Will's a code person. He's got the opposite, like bad boy kind of thing. He's always got foppish hair and he's never shaves or whatever like that. And so girls, it's the extremes, right? So, but I think that's interesting because I don't feel like Hannibal's being jealous, but he's surprised when he says stuff like, well, you said to yourself that when you do what you do usually is not good for you, because like he's self-destructive behavior. And but then of course he shifts it to the killer and all that too. But again, Hannibal's so smooth distracting people. Go ahead.
That was something that I expected him to try to point them in a direction, but he directly pretty much tells Will, hey, I have a patient that thinks he might know who killed the trombonist.
Yeah.
You might want to go check out this music shop. And Will's like, yeah, I'll go take a look. But then we get to see Bedelia again with Hannibal, and Hannibal saying, I may have a new friend.
Yeah, no, this is interesting because his guard is down and he's emotional, like he's smiling. He's got instead of talking like this, he's got some energy in his voice, some up and down as he's talking to her. This is the subtle acting of Mads here that I really think is great, and we haven't seen it before. Not this characters. It's like Will comes over, he sees Will happy, he's happy for Will. Will has something happy. He gives Will a gift in telling him about this, that he goes, I hesitate to tell you this, Will, but I have, like you said, I have a person who thinks that blah blah blah. Maybe you should check out. He's not trying to get Will killed. It doesn't seem like, right? But I'm looking at it going, wow, Hannibal's like a giddy schoolboy. like he's really happy for him. That's good. That's maturity in a relationship. I just thought it was funny, man. I'm telling you.
No,
I'm telling you, this is about relationships.
It is. But we do have to have our little bit of action when Will goes ahead and does investigate. He pulls up with two officers, and they go into the shop, and they're starting to ask questions. And Tobias is not smooth at all. Not at all. Like, oh well, I heard about the trombonist that the killer tried to play through their throat, and he's like, we didn't release those details. Oh well, I know this.
That's that convenient writing point. That's the whole. And again, you're working your way through the Bond films with me. Every time we change from one television show to another, every couple months or whatever. But it's the Mike Myers, Austin Powers thing like that. How did you know I killed somebody? I didn't. You just told me, kind of bullshit. It's that kind of weak ass writing that I didn't like that, because honestly, Tobias kind of redeemed himself in this episode, and the writing didn't give him a lot. But I was like, you go, Tobias. I'm liking you more than all these other has-beens I haven't or never was that we've had this whole season.
But that's the thing. That's the thing. He isn't Hannibal. Like he does this disturbing, disgusting bullshit, but he isn't Hannibal Lecter, and he's going to fall apart as soon as you start pulling a thread.
True.
See what I did there? See what I did there?
I heard it too.
But speaking of hearing things, Will heard something outside, and he goes down. He heard like suffering. He's like, did any of you hear that? He steps outside. There's nothing out there. So he goes back in and
takes meds too.
Yeah,
in the
takes
street.
medicine, comes back in. Officers, everybody's gone. So he goes ahead, he pulls out his gun, he walks towards the room that they were in before and opens it, and he finds a cop with a cello rod just through his neck. And then he notices something in the wall that opens up and leads to the basement. And you
kill
see
room.
Yeah, it's the kill room where the guts are all being turned into strings. It's so creepy. And then he goes back and he finds the other cop with his face just pushed in and sliced through some of the strings. And that's when Tobias tries to get behind Will and tries to choke him out. But he's not successful because Will is able to block it with his hand, and he had the gun and he shoots back behind him. He nicks Tobias. So Tobias gets away. And then we cut back to Hannibal with Franklin.
I liked here the meds. I mean, obviously they're trying to make it show like is it in his head or whatever. Okay, it seems like it is. Whatever. I was liking him being a bit more assertive. But the thing today is when it comes back, we know what's going to happen. And again, Tobias is on his home ground, so Tobias did pretty good. But the best thing about it for me is as much as I love action and violence and blood and guts and all that stuff, I really do, and horror stuff and weird crap. I think a lot of times, they overdo the action. Like this show is so good at where you don't need to have CGI. You can just have practical effects. You can have good, as long as you've got good solid writing and characters you can care about here, your set pieces can be fine, look good, get you interested. You can have some good shots of things, and things mean stuff, and you go, oh, and you connect it to an early episode that you didn't think was good, like I mentioned with Tobias before, and how he had followed him. That's why you had that one scene, and it makes you appreciate it more. Like on the second walkthrough, I'm even more attentive of some of these things, knowing there might be important, so I'm seeing it new, even though I've already watched this, even though it's been like 10, 12 years, whatever it's been. And so when Will is struggling, one, he looks a lot more confident in handling himself with the gun, because we have seen him at the range once or twice since the first episode where he shot the one guy that says, "I see you, how you are," who we did see as a brief ghost in here in one of the episodes, last episode of this one, I can't remember. But when Tobias comes up behind him and they struggle and he shoots the gun, all of a sudden you hear that ringing that you do get in your ears. And also, that's it. One shot done, which is realistic, right? I don't want them going through a big old fight or whatever like that. Tobias is a wounded animal. He's scared. So he just goes and retreats, right? I mean, that's what happens. So yeah, they cut to Hannibal here, in Hannibal's, home base with Franklin. So, hey, Franklin, you go, boy. What's going on? So what happens here, sir?
Hannibal's trying to tell Franklin, hey, you need to go. You need to see. We need to see other people.
We're through here.
We're
about to be released soon.
Franklin is upset. He's like, "What the? I was already referred to another therapist. You said he's been through how many? Like 6. But ultimately, he's telling him, "Hey, it's not. You don't need to worry. Okay, what do I do about this? What about Tobias? What about what I told you about Tobias?" And then Tobias enters the office.
I mean, you can't write the timing of that any more lucky than what it is. Am I right?
Yeah. And
Tobias is standing there with his ear leaking because he's got a chunk of it taken off. That was pretty good.
And then you have where, oh my gosh, it's pathetic. Franklin is telling him, "Hey, you've got to turn yourself in.
Tell me why this is pathetic.
You're not alone." What?
Tell me why this is pathetic. I'm serious.
I mean, his delivery. He's already suspected something wrong with Tobias at this point.
But was he being fake earlier?
What do you mean?
Meaning the whole time we've seen Franklin, he seems like somebody that's pretending to be cultured and all that to find a friend, right? He's had a lot of referrals, so he's doing doctor shopping. This is one version of it. It's a way to control the attention that you can get, and that's a source of control. That's why, like, a lot of people act up negatively or whatever, because that allows them a certain control over a situation they're in. Like whether it's a baby screaming, you ignore them, but if you go, "Oh, I'm so sorry," and that's how young kids are really kind of distraught today, your generation, because they're raised very soft. So I look at Franklin here as, I thought he was being kind of funny, but you know what? He was right about Tobias. We clearly can see that now that we've seen Tobias in this episode. So now he's the most assertive he's been. And what else more can you say? If he really, really, truly cared about Tobias, which it does seem like he
does care about Tobias.
Then exactly what he's saying and how he's delivering it, he's not like, "Oh, please don't shoot us. Please don't do." And it's like, no, I think he's being 100% supportive here. I think he's being the best human being that he can be, that we've seen under stress right here. I think it's absolutely a great bit of acting. This actor impressed me, from going to that snobby kind of guy to, "Hey, I'm front with this African-American guy, and I was there, and I went to the cheese shop, and blah, blah, blah," to here. It's like his arc went from zero to hero here. That's what makes what happens here even more shocking to me, because I will disagree with you. I in no way took this as being pathetic. I thought it's absolutely the right, most mature thing you can sit there and say if you're in a caring relationship or somebody that you do care about, and he clearly cares about Tobias. Now, he obviously doesn't know Tobias very well because he's broken, but then so is every other lead in this show as well. That's the fun of the show. Everybody's broke, no matter what position they have.
Speaking of broken, then let's talk about Franklin's neck.
That's right.
because then Hannibal walks up because Franklin says, "Hey, you're not alone," and Tobias says, "I know." And then Hannibal snaps Franklin's neck. It drops, and after that, Hannibal Tobias is talking for Hannibal, saying that he was looking forward to go ahead and kill Franklin, and I think Hannibal thought that Tobias would have been like, "Okay, we're cool now," but no. Instead, Tobias attacks Hannibal, and they are fighting.
It's a brutal fight. It's a really good one.
It's
very surprised
really
at how
good.
feral it was, animalistic. Seriously.
And then, but ultimately, Hannibal does get the upper hand, stabs his leg. Tobias drops down, and he uses a statue of an elk to go ahead and kill him. And that's when Will and Jack come in later to go ahead and clean up the crime scene. And they're like, "Oh, we're so sorry for bringing this world into yours," which is just funny. And the episode ends with Hannibal talking to Bedelia one more time, saying he's going to go ahead and start helping patients again.
Yeah, I mean, Bedelia earlier was basically saying, the whole thing about relationships is something I'd mentioned earlier about being psychologically visible to somebody else, meaning you just get them, you know them somehow on a level that maybe other people have a difficult time seeing. There's a sense to that that builds familiarity. And if you can have that and expose yourself, you can get something called trust. And, trust doesn't mean everybody's good, everybody's bad. It's just a thing that you have. It's like reliable. And that's the whole point in being assertive in relationships, is that, you're putting yourself out there. So you're showing the other person that, hey, I like you. I don't know if you'll like me, but I'm willing to do all this. And so when you can when you attempt to be assertive in relationships, again, it does guarantee you're going to have the outcome that you want, as we've seen with a lot of the people here, Alana, I mean, everybody, honestly. But the attempt is what's important, because that's what registers with other people, so much so that I'd mentioned earlier that Hannibal was genuinely happy that Alana's apparently very kissable for Will, not jealous, right? Not territorial. Like I said, he gave him a gift in a way. But here at the end, Big basically explaining that to him or whatever like that, you can see that he's really going, hey, I see somebody that's like myself, and crazy or not, that's where all your connections for the most part form. Usually with a man and a woman, it's the physical is what attracts you to each other long enough where you get together and then form what's called the pair bond later on, where that part of it goes away. And you can get into the biocentric theory and all that stuff of it. But in reality of it is you're looking at Hannibal talking to her, and Hannibal, it seems like his armor is down now, and he's willing to put himself out there because, as she says, in not too subtle language, hey, one person's not a practice, meaning if he's just seeing Will, that's not really a practice. So now he can help people out, and he feels like he can be a positive effect and all that because he's seeing Will change for the better. And so right now Will is the catch, and Will doesn't know he's the catch. He's like the hot guy at a bar that doesn't know he's the hot guy. Women can't stand. I'm dead serious. It's the dynamic.
I know.
But that's how it is. And but he's also the bad boy. He's also the lost boy that you and I, as mature men, would go, he's not a good person to be with. Yeah, you might have fun with him, but long term, it's not going to work. But that's the beauty of the show. It's all about the instability of relationships, but still the desire and need to try to form them. Even if it means, ripping somebody's throat out because you think they're a shitty performer and you don't know how to communicate yourself. The backstory for these serial killers that are the one-offs that aren't really value added to the show is only the disappointing part to me. But for me, 2 phenomenal episodes. Loved them a lot. Looking forward to the next couple with you. Final thoughts?
Final thoughts? Yeah, no, this was a great set of episodes. I'm glad how we decided to go ahead and review this, because 2 at a time, having to wait just for that, no, I couldn't have done it. I needed it now.
Yeah. Well, you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Season 1, episodes 7 and 8 of Hannibal TV. Go check it out. We'll be back with 9 and 10 soon to come. For Professor Pixel, everybody involved here at the Extreme Movie Show, I'm your host, Rob. Good night now.